Hello and welcome to the sixth episode of SOL's 2023 webinar series featuring presentations on ecological land care. My name is Christine and I'm the Special Projects Lead with SOL, and I'm happy to be your host today. I live in Ottawa, the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe peoples. SOL's webinar series is held every 2 weeks on Tuesdays at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Atlantic. This month's theme is Indigenous-led land stewardship. You can find all the themes for the series as well as the registration information on SOL's website. This episode is being recorded and will be available afterwards on SOL's website and YouTube channel. Before we begin, I'd like to mention that this series and much of SOL's work is made possible by the generous support of Gaia College, Canada's leading college for professional development and diploma courses in organic land care. SOL is also supported by its members, so if you haven't become a member yet, I invite you to do so. At the end of the presentation, we will have about 15 minutes or so for discussion. So if you have any questions now or during the presentation and afterwards, please put them in the chat. Finally, for today's presentation, I'm pleased to introduce Coyote White Duck, who is here to present on the Ajashki Heart Garden. Welcome, Coyote, and over to you.
Okay, hello, and thank you very much for the introduction. I am Coyote White Duck, and I am the leader of the Ajashki Food Security and Climate Change Learning Center, which is also a heart garden. So what I plan to present on today is what we do at Ajashki, because even within the congregation that I'm partnered with, the First U congregation, a lot of people know that we're about gardening, but still don't know exactly what we do. So I prepared a slideshow presentation that kind of depicts exactly what we do, everything that we do here, because we do a lot of stuff. So yeah, just before I start, I just want to say what Ajashki, the word Ajashki is. Ajashki, it means soil in Algonquin or Anishinaabe. I am Algonquin Anishinaabe. It means soil or like small amounts of soil, so dirt. And when we're talking about food security and climate change, soil is such an important part. You know, that all food originally comes from the soil. And then when you're talking about climate change, either the problems that add to climate change or have to do with, some of it has to do with the soil, and some of the solutions to climate change have to do with the soil. So it really is all about the soil, and that's what we teach a lot about. So yeah, let's get started. So yeah, the first slides are the two main things we do. Well, the one main thing we do here at Ajashki, and that's growing food and teaching people how to garden. So the first picture on the left is of myself and one of our participants who we call Future Food Warriors. That's us in the garden. This would have been our first year, so about 2 years ago. We started growing, just typical veggies, tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers. So that's just two of us working in the pepper plants, and learning how to grow food. The second photo on the right is me with our aeroponic growing tower systems. So we are also partnered with the Parkdale Food Center, who loaned us out these aeroponic growing towers, which are so great. I love them. And yeah, we grow food in them all year round. And within them, we're actually able to produce quite a lot of food. We have 5 now. This was 2 years ago, or last year when we only had 3. So now we have 5, and we produce probably, say, a couple pounds of greens every month, as well as we have one tower that's all strawberries that are starting to grow, and hopefully in a couple months we'll be eating fresh strawberries from them. So they're excellent, and they allow us to have food just every day we come in at Ajashki. We're able to harvest from these growing towers. So they're amazing. Going on to our next slide. So we primarily focus on growing food and crops, but I also like to teach a little bit about gardening, like ornamental gardening, because there is a lot of work out there, and all of our participants are youth, some who might be looking to find jobs in the future. And my other job is I work on clients' gardens. Clients hiring me to take care of the gardens. So we like to do a little bit of ornamental gardening, and that's exactly what this Future Food Warrior is doing in this picture, where he's taking care of a shade garden that we planted last year. Oh, this next picture is of one of our Future Food Warriors planting a tree. So we do a bit of talking and learning about climate change. We have a lot of discussions about it. And where we can, we like to take action. And this is one day we decided, I brought in a bunch of oak tree saplings, and I had all the future food warriors plant trees in the bush just behind where our project is located, First Unitarian Congregation in Ottawa. So yeah, we went and planted a bit of trees. That's something that is good to do in the face of climate change, is plant trees as much as we can. So that brings us to our logo. So this is the Ajashki logo. It was made by one of our future food warriors. So on the left half, the first half of the logo, you can see it's an apple tree and a garden underneath it, symbolizing the learning about gardening and also food security. And then the second half of the top, it has a tree that's on fire. And that's indicative of, obviously climate change, especially right now, we have so much forest fires that are close to the region here in Ottawa. Even today, some of our future food warriors couldn't even go outside because of the smoke. So it's obviously a very pressing issue. And then at the bottom, we have our name, Ajashki, underneath the soil, because that's what it means. I was quite happy with our future food warrior who designed this, because I feel like it depicts what we are all about in one simple logo. So yeah, what do we teach about at Ajashki? So obviously the main thing is how to grow food and gardening, and food, food security. Some of our participants are food insecure youth, so we really like to teach them how to grow food. The next part is we do a bit of learning about is wild foods and plant identification. So we like to sometimes go out for walks and try to find plants that we can just eat from the meadows. So that's an important part. How to prepare produce from the garden. And that leads me into the lunch program that we have. So we started providing lunch for our participants, because we noticed the first year when we started this program that some of our participants were showing up to work on empty stomachs. And we don't know how nice to work on an empty stomach, especially if you're a food security project. So we started making lunches for them, and the future food warriors would be part of making that lunch. They would go harvest the whatever we were making and bring it, and then we would all prepare the food together and then all eat together. And it really shows the progression of our program, because when we first started, we were eating kale salads and kale wraps every day. And now we have some pretty intricate lunches. Now we have more volunteers, more participants, and more food. And every day we're eating a nice salad, lettuce salad or kale salad from our grow towers. And yeah, so yeah, the lunch programs have really improved, and now we have some pretty amazing lunches sometimes. We also teach how agriculture and climate change are related. So we teach about food security and climate change and how they're related, because they're very intertwined. Food systems, obviously, we're all about producing food as locally as possible, and that's what we do at Ajashki. This is a project that is part of reconciliation. So we teach a bit about Indigenous cultures. We do a lot of learning about Algonquin Anishinaabe culture, that's what I am. And we do have a lot of Inuk participants, so we do some learn about that as well. And then we also teach about the 7 dimensions of wellness, which is something I'll talk about a little bit later on. Yeah, so as I said, we do grow a lot of food inside and outside. And with that food, we do 3 things. So the first thing is we prepare our lunches for it every day. We have a lunch here at Ajashki. The second thing is we allow our future food warriors to take some of it home with them. So in the first picture on the left, you can see one of our participants, Mary Claire, has quite literally a whole armful of salad greens that she was harvested and that she's taking home for herself. And in the second picture, we have another one of our future food warriors who are holding giant bags of kale and Swiss chard. And now these bags are donations, because when we have extra food, we like to donate to Parkdale Food Center. So this is what some of the donations that we got together, and those donations were then delivered by myself to Parkdale Food Center, hopefully to feed some hungry mouse. Yeah. So I put this next picture in the slideshow because this was right before we actually started our garden. So this is where our garden is now. But before, it was just a bunch of wood chips and weeds and a lot of dog strangling vine, particularly like noxious weeds. But yeah, it was just a blank space with nice sunny space with nothing being done with it. So that's where I came in and we started the Ajashki program. And this is what it looked like last year. It still looks somewhat like this now, but actually today they're all out there planting stuff. So I decided to use a picture from last year. So yeah, in this front, you can see a bunch of marigolds. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then in the back, you can see more of our actual vegetable gardens. We mainly do everything in raised beds. And then we do, there's a squirrel protector in the back that I'll explain again more about later. But yeah, so that's kind of the area that we use. It's a fairly small area, but we grow a lot of stuff in there and it keeps us busy. So we are happy with it. Oh yeah, so the squirrel protector 3000. So when we first got here, our first year, we were growing lots of plants, but we are losing like probably 75% of everything to squirrels because there's so many of them at first year. So last year we decided to build a squirrel protector. We call this giant one, the squirrel protector 3000. So basically it's just a giant cage that goes over 4 large garden beds and it protects the squirrels from getting in. And now we've actually, ever since we built it, we've had a lot less problems and we actually get to eat all the produce that we grow. So it's been really nice. One of our volunteers helped us build it, as well with help from the Future Food Warriors. And yeah, it's been great. So yeah, that area you can see is all protected by a Squirrel Protector 3000. And we are actually starting building more. Yeah, so this picture here is of our water barrels. So this year we're actually painting a mural on the side of the building. So the water barrels aren't hooked up because we've been cleaning off the paint and we're getting ready to paint, our mural. So we're not using them currently, but generally when the mural's done, or last year, we had these water barrels hooked up to this pipe here. And the pipe collects all the water from the roof here at First U, which is a very giant roof. And all the water comes down this pipe and then flows into the water barrels and fills up the water barrels. Then we use all of the water in the barrels to water all of our plants. Obviously, even if we had them set up this year, they wouldn't have been much help because we're in dire need of rain right now. So it wouldn't have been much help, but when there is raining, they do help us without having to use city water to water our plants. Yeah, so this is part of our kind of winter programming here. The first tray that you can see under lights is a tray we use to start our seedlings that eventually go into the grow towers. And then the second trays you see in the background are trays that are what we actually started our seedlings with that grow outside. So we actually have taken those down now and all of our seedlings are outside and even as we speak, they are being planted. So that's more, we run the grow towers all year long, but we only do start our seedlings in the spring and then move them outside in the summer. But yeah, that's one of the Future Food Warriors and 2 volunteers is working on planting some seedlings there. Yeah, so on top of giving the Future Food Warriors food to take home and our lunches and such, we also did a canning workshop last year that was a huge success. So I actually got my partner in who did a canning workshop. And so we had a bunch of tomatoes and string beans and peppers from our garden. And yeah, we did a canning workshop one day that went really well. And we canned a bunch of cans of string beans, tomatoes, and peppers. And yeah, now every time we have lunch, we bust out a can and we eat it on our lunch. And that's a great little addition to our lunch. And we've been eating them all winter long. And yeah, there's a close up of the string. I love pickled string beans. And yeah, they're so good. I eat them every day. So yummy, I love them. Yeah, our gardens are registered as heart gardens. So it's with the First Nations, I forget the name, First Nations of Canada Institute or something. But anyways, they have a series of gardens that are meant to commemorate the children who were the unmarked graves that were found at all the residential schools across Canada. So you can go and build a garden and then register your garden as a heart garden. And this is to commemorate those bodies that were those young young bodies that were found. So we chose to honor the 215 children who were found at the Kamloops Residential School. And so what we do is we plant one orange marigold for each child. So we have 215 orange marigolds planted in our garden. The second one is from the RE program, which is like kind of like a Sunday school thing kind of here at the First U. It's a child's program, but we've also made a second garden for them, built by Ajashki, maintained by the kids of the RE program. And that's also another registered heart garden. Yeah. So this next picture is a picture of a sign we made for the heart garden. So as you see at the bottom, it says Ajashki Heart Garden. And then at the top, it says Ajashki Ode Kitigan. So that means the Ajashki Heart Garden in Algonquin language. And then there's myself, one of the future food warriors, and 3 of the volunteers that we have here posing in front of it. That's right at the beginning, the entrance to our garden. That's in the back of the First Unitarian campus. So I decided to put this picture of this book that we have because this is our super great ideas book. So it's a book that we have, and we get the future food warriors and the volunteers and myself to, anytime we come up with a great idea, we write it down. And with this book is kind of how we kind of started forming our program. It's a way where the participants of the program can help create what we do in the program. And it's been a huge success, and we have some of the stuff we do here now were ideas that the future food warriors had. In this picture is, so as I mentioned before, we do a bit of learning about the Algonquin language, and this is our wall of Algonquin words. So every day when we're not super busy, I come in and we do an Algonquin word of the day, and then I pick a word. Usually has something to do with a cone means snow. I probably put that up there when it was snow day. And so I choose a word every day, and then it goes on, helping people learn the language. We've had a couple of times now an elder come in. This is an elder from my community named Albert Dumont to kind of help guide us with our program development. So it's a picture of me and him one day when he did a sharing circle with us. This is a picture of the 7 dimensions of wellness, because some of the youth that we use, struggle with mental health issues and such. And we're not here to be counselors or anything, but this is a way we could kind of help them in developing how they can better themselves. So, and it's a great tool for anybody looking to help with wellness. But basically, there's 7 dimensions of wellness, as you can see: spiritual, emotional, financial, and sometimes we go have one-on-one conversations with the future food warriors and see if we can help them in any of these dimensions. So that's one way we've been helping them. We've also recently, this winter, done a series of workshops from a grant that we got. This one workshop was a birch bark basket making workshop with a member of my community named Pinoke Smith, who came in, and we all made birch bark baskets one day. And it was a lot of fun. It was a great cultural activity. We also, in the same series of workshop, did model hand making workshop. So this is all of us with our the specialist that came in, and we all made this forms of our hand. It was pretty interesting. That was all for a grant that we received to do. And then also, of course, we like to do field trips when we can. I myself am a farmer. I just bought a farmer last year, and we have a very small area that we garden in. So we're starting to actually take the participants probably next month up to the farm and do field trips up there, so they get some on-farm work. And there's a picture of 3 of us at my farm. So that also is going to be fun. And then they get to help me out on my farm. This is one picture. I just thought this was a funny one. There's one of our future food warriors jabbing with a piece of arugula in his mouth, and I just like that picture, so I thought I'd throw it in. This is another field trip that we did for a walk to change the name of the Sir John A. Macdonald Parkway in Ottawa. When we talk about reconciliation, we talk about removing such names from places of honor, and that's what that walk was about. And yeah, and finally, this picture is of our end of the year ceremony. So we kind of finish, we do 2 days a week here at Ajashki, but in October, we take a month break, we take a month off, and then we start back up in November doing 1 day a week. But at the end of the beginning of October kind of ends our summer program. And so we have a celebration. So we invite all and anybody associated with Ajashki or who's helped us out at all. We invite them to the garden. I kind of do a closing prayer. So yeah, that would be the last the very end of the season for us. And yeah, that was the last slide. So I hope you enjoyed my presentation on Ajashki.
Okay. Hi, well, thank you so much, Kayoki, for this really interesting presentation. What I really truly appreciate is the fact that it's so multifaceted. That the garden is the place, the meaningful place to gather, but even the idea of doing field trips and raising people's curiosity and connections with other places, with other ideas and people. It just sounds very rich. So I'm going to start off with a question, but I invite other people to put a question in the chat if they would like. But my first one, I hope you don't mind, is personal. And it's just basically asking, what do you get out of being a part of this project? Because it's only about 2 or 3 years that this has been running. Is that the case, that you've been involved? And
Yeah.
if so, what do you personally get out of it?
Okay, well, so myself and all the Future Food Warriors are paid. We're the Future Food Warriors and myself, we all make a wage being here. And as well, I love teaching about gardening. So it actually works great for me. I'm very knowledgeable about dragon stuff, but so I like teaching people what I know, and I enjoy watching the progression in the Future Food Warriors when they start. Some of them it's their first or second job, and then you see them by a couple months in. You just see their just how much they learn and really actually making a difference in people grow their, because the word Future Warrior is the idea that they come here, they learn a lot, and then they go out into the world, and then maybe they can teach other people how to grow food. And to me, that's one of the big ways we can tackle the problem of food insecurity. You know, you give a man a fish, feeds for a day, teach a man to fish, or teach a man to grow a garden, well, he eats for a lifetime, kind of thing. You know, so that'd be important.
And how do the Future Food Warriors, how do they learn about this program? And is there an application process, or is it just when it's full, a cohort, or how do people get involved?
Yeah, that's it. When it's full, it's full. We only usually take about 8 to 10 Future Food Warriors. At first, we were doing Indigenous and non-Indigenous, but then we started working towards like reconciliation and getting certain funding that only allowed us to. So now we have only been taking Indigenous participants, and we've reached out to a bunch of different organizations in Ottawa, Ottawa Native Friendship Center, Wabano Center for Aboriginal Health, Inuktitut, which is a program or an organization that helps Inuit and Inuk youth who live in Ottawa. And so we actually got most of our participants from Inuktitut so far. So most of our participants are Inuk.
Yeah, okay. But how has this garden moved the conversation or changed the conversation about climate change or land stewardship or food sovereignty, like with the participants and with the wider community?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Like I try to teach about climate change only so much. It can be a depressing topic, like especially for the youth who have to grow up in it at all. But the idea is that if I can teach as much of them to grow their own food, well, then maybe in the future we can have and they go out and teach. I teach 10 people, and they each go out and teach 10 people. And people start growing more of their own food or wild harvesting more, then maybe we can make a bigger impact on the climate, because right now the agriculture is a huge impact on the climate. And so that's kind of the issue that I can't do much about the climate myself, but I can do something about agriculture because that's what I work in. So that's kind of how, through agriculture, is kind of how we're practicing climate mitigation and resilience, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
And in terms of land stewardship, well, I think, maintaining your garden is one of the most basic forms of land stewardship you can kind of do.
Yeah, but I guess what I also find interesting is these spaces in our urban environments that are maybe private or public, but can be spaces where community can come together. Um, how is that sort of part of the conversation about how land is used in these environments for the common good, or what purpose that they can serve? And a follow-up question would be, so it's with the First Unitarian campus. And so do you know if others are following through with this, like using their spaces, green spaces, to run programs such as this?
I'm not sure if there's I haven't heard of any yet. I think here at First U, they have a lot of green space, just space here to run a program like this. I'm not sure every congregation kind of has one. So that could probably be part of the issue, but yeah, I haven't really heard too much of any other kind of similar organization running programs. I know there's a lot of community gardens out there, but not like a program that's the way Ajashki is unique. That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, Ajashki, yeah, the program, when you're speaking about it, like these partnerships you have with a food center. So some people might call it a food bank. They don't call it a food bank. They call it a food center, which is holistic too. And it's really important for them to make these connections to young people growing food and then being able to provide an abundance or excess food for others who would benefit from it. So that's just one of these partnerships that's come out of that. Are there any other ways? You said it also feeds some people maybe in the community from the congregation?
Yeah, so we have opened it up because we've been producing so much food in those grow towers. And so we had to open it up to people in the congregation on Sundays when they come for the Sunday service. We allowed them to come and harvest some food. And so, yeah, a lot of people would come. We usually get somewhere in between like 8 and 40 people coming in after the service and harvesting some food to take home. And then what some people have told me that within the congregation, there is a few people who are food insecure. So I think it's definitely helped them out a lot too. So yeah, it's helped people in the congregation. It's helped any of those people who benefit from the food centers or who use the food centers. And then it's definitely helped our participants, the future food warriors, bring food back home to there, because a lot of them are food insecure themselves, right?
Yeah.
Some of them only work 2 days a week here at Ajashki, which is well below the poverty line of income. So
Yes. Yeah, I can imagine. But so it's one of Seoul's recognized 2022 green spaces. So we're very happy about that. And one way that the people reviewing the application, it was just like, you've done a lot in a couple of years, like just initiating this and already having programming and making it comprehensive and holistic as you're doing. Is there anything that you would have changed, or you will change in the future? Change or add or evolve?
that's a no, because we've been doing a lot, as you said, and we decided that we do not want to expand anymore, because if we do, it'll be getting too much. So I myself am the only paid worker who's not a future food warrior, and then everybody else is volunteers. And sometimes, the volunteers we had, sometimes we stretch them pretty thin. It's almost like working a full-time job for them, doing the stuff for the Ajashki. We have to do finances and stuff like that. So we really kind of stretched our volunteers as much as we want to. We don't want any of our volunteers burning out.
Yeah.
So we're kind of happy where we are right now, where we've gotten multiple partnerships with people. With our Parkdale Food Center, I go up every Thursday to the food center, or one of the food centers run by Parkdale Minawisine. and I grab all their compost, and then they don't have to pay to get that compost taken away after. So we're happy with all the benefits, that mutual benefits between our partners and what we do. The only thing that I say will be changing like a bit, and I kind of already mentioned this, is that we've done like a couple of field trips before, but this year, because now I have a farm, we're planning on getting them up there maybe a lot more often and really get them some hands-on farming experience. And because our garden here is pretty small, so that would be one of the only main things that's changing. But other than that, I think we're pretty happy where we are.
Yeah, and I think you benefit from, as you say, their input, their learning and contributing to your farm.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the beginning you were saying that Ajashki is the Algonquin word for soil. And so yeah, if we could just talk a little bit, because that might be of interest, especially to the people watching this. And that is, how do you care for the soil? How do you build it? How did you find it to begin with? And then what are your practices? You just mentioned composting, but what do you do to ensure the health of the soil?
Yeah, that's a fair, a good question, and I'm not sure you're gonna like my answer, but because we're an urban like garden, we had to just truck a bunch of soil in. We trucked a bunch of compost in, and then a bunch of soil in, and yeah, then we had to lay it down, and we were doing all raised beds and stuff because when we got here, like the soil just wasn't suitable for agriculture. It was right next to a building. So in urban agriculture, there's very limited limitations that you can do with so we've done all raised beds, but what I say we can do is we try to do what we can to limit, we practice some permaculture methods, or just, it's just more sustainable methods. So we try to mulch everything with straw so we can limit our water use. Or in mulching too also protects the top of the soil from being destroyed by the sun. We practice everything we do as organic agriculture, except the grow towers. I think those are like a gray area, but we're not using any sort of harsh chemical or harsh pesticide or anything like that. We try to be as au naturel as possible, but again, there's limitations when in an urban setting. So
yeah. Okay, but still, is that also what's being imparted though, is that yeah, the soil, and in urban environments there's a harshness, things have been degraded, but just it's a way of working that's always consciously building and enhancing and allowing natural systems to take place for the health. Is that sort of part of what would be imparted in your program?
yeah, exactly. And we do a lot of teaching about that. We don't have the space here to like we do a lot of teaching about not tilling this, or like no till, which is basically reduced tilling. And so I teach a lot about permaculture and our more sustainable organic agricultural practices. Because I served on the first ever cohort of the Canadian Agricultural Youth Council. And that's what I was in the climate change group, because we were split into 3 groups, and I was on the climate change group. And that's something that we heavily focused on, is sustainability in agriculture and like proper land stewardship. And like, I think more and more farmers now are realizing the land you work on isn't just, where your money comes from. It is everything. It is your livelihood. You are part of it, and it is part of you. And so I think more and more, especially the more younger generations of farmers that come in, are planning on doing ways more sustainable and trying to respect the ground that their livelihood depends on a little bit more. And I do teach a lot about that here at Ajashki. So
Yeah. Well, and you're saying, yeah, climate change, and that can be a depressing topic, especially on a day like this when we have the smoke of forest fires all around us. And I'm just wondering too, is there this connection to the other sort of crises in the world, the biodiversity loss, and like just the fact that other species, our relations with them and coexisting with other species? How important is that to this project, or to you even?
oh yeah, I definitely teach about sharing the land with the other animals. That one thing I always agree on is, sharing. When you grow stuff, you're going to end up sharing with the other animals. I know, even though we built that giant fort-looking squirrel protector 3000, it's because I like to share my produce with the animals, but I don't like them taking everything. So
Yeah.
that's why we
They're
have the
shared
squirrel protector.
too.
Yeah, but yeah, that's why we like to practice like no pesticide use or anything like that. If we do have pests problem, we try to deal with it with the most organic approach as possible. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, this was a really interesting project. I know I'm lucky to be in the same community as you, so I hope to visit. Is it open to the public to come at all, or do you have those open houses? I know you do for volunteers, but is there ever a time when the public, maybe open doors or
Yeah.
something?
The best thing I said, if you would like to come visit the Ajashki Garden, like, I mean, First U is in a closed off campus. You really could just drive down anytime and come take a wander, and don't mind that, of course. But if you'd actually like to meet with us, we meet every Tuesdays and Thursdays. So you would have to come either on a Tuesday or a Thursday, and then we could actually meet you and show you around our garden and see what we do for yourself.
Well, that would be great. And I know that you're close to, is it a seniors residence? That's like an assisted living
Yeah,
building?
there's a next door, there's a Unitarian house it's called, and yeah, that's a seniors residence.
And do they come over and,
Occasionally, there's a few that we've have close relationships with, and then you see them sometimes walk through the garden, so they'll be walking their dog and we'll see them walk through the garden. But yeah, there's a couple that we actually have kind of a relationship with and speak with.
yeah, okay. Well, I truly appreciate your time today. And I guess I'll just make a plug for, we have another webinar in 2 weeks. So this is part of the 2023 webinar series on ecological approaches to land care. And in 2 weeks, we will continue with this theme of Indigenous-led and Indigenous inspired land care. And we're going to Vancouver to learn about a community food forest by a food justice organization, Renfrew Collingwood Food Justice. So yeah, we look forward to that. We hope everyone can join us, but otherwise this recording and the others are on Soul's website, and we will be sending the link out after this is over. So thank you very much, Koki, today for joining us. And yeah, there's a couple thank yous in the chat.
Oh, thank you for having me today. It was nice.
Yeah. So take care and enjoy the summer harvest or the summer, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, sounds good. Take care.
Okay, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.